Have you ever had a situation where one of your kids comes home and they just feel lonely? They feel kind of sad. They don't know if they have friends. It's a challenge for many parents. But what do parents do when they feel sad, when they feel lonely, when they feel isolated? There's some new data that shows that this is a rising trend, and it puts many of us in a dark place. But today on the Celebrate Kids podcast, in this daily segment, Facing the Dark, Dr. Kathy is going to address this and talk through it with us. What should we do when we feel alone or sad or isolated in what we're doing as parents? Before we jump into the conversation today, I want to let you know that today's podcast is brought to you by Summit Ministries. Now, Summit does an amazing job training young people to not only know and love the Lord, but to have confidence and conviction in their understanding of what God has revealed to them in the world. They train kids in worldview. They've got a fantastic summer camp. It's a 2-week deep dive into Christian worldview with some of the top experts that speak on these different topics. Dr. Kathy is one of the speakers, and my kids have been to this camp. They have a location in Manitou Springs, Colorado, and another one at Lookout Mountain, Georgia. It's a phenomenal camp, and I think if you're looking for a place for your kids to go to camp this summer, check out Summit Ministries. It's for high school and college-age kids, and it will challenge and change your kids, giving them conviction and understanding in what they believe. For more information on it, go to summitministries.org/celebrate kids. But let's turn now to Dr. Kathy Cook.
Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you, baby. Not every light is gonna guide you.
So, Dr. Kathy, a new national study from Ohio State University's Wexner Medical Center reports that a strong majority of parents in America are experiencing notable levels of isolation, loneliness, and burnout stemming from the demands of parenthood. A press release from the Wexner Medical Center reports that about 2/3 of parents felt the demands of parenthood sometimes or frequently feels isolating and lonely, and about 62% really feel burned out by the responsibilities of being a parent. Nearly 2 in 5, about 38%, feel that they have no one to support them in their parenting role. Nearly 4 in 5, that's 79%, would value a way to connect with other parents outside of work and home. How do you think parents' loneliness really impacts kids, noting that there's a majority of parents that really do feel this way? Why should we be concerned, or I don't even know if concerned is the right word, attentive maybe, to the rising rates of parent loneliness?
I'm so glad you brought this up. This really concerns me. I can't imagine feeling the weight of raising today's children in a chaotic culture with, mixed expectations and, geographic isolation. I grew up kitty corner from one set of grandparents and 3 blocks from the other, and walked to school with best friends, and the moms of those kids, became my mom's best friends. And it's just so different today, where there can be a real isolation for a variety of reasons. Busyness creates it. I just think that this must be so stressful for the moms and the dads. And should we be concerned? Yes, because lonely, isolated parents who are overwhelmed by the role of raising their kids, that's going to affect the kids. They'll not be parented as well. I would guess that that's an accurate statement. I think the children might feel some stress there as well. Parents who are alone are not going to make the better wisdom decisions. They're not going to have someone to chat with about, this and that and, problem solving. I think it does affect kids. It's a concern.
Yeah, and I think one of the concerning things oftentimes is that sometimes parents don't feel like they can really talk about that. It's hard to bring up this idea that I feel alone when I might be surrounded by kids. That's really sometimes the nature of what it is like in our house. And my wife and I have actually talked about this. Do you feel like connected to a community? Do you feel supported? Just because you can get into the malaise of just being around people all the time, but never feeling like you're known or really cared for. You're always caring for someone else. And we've talked a lot about this, about helping parents relate to their kids, oftentimes by, sharing their struggles, because it kind of gives the kids confidence that they can struggle and live and succeed when they see that their parents are struggling and, finding ways to kind of move beyond it, or that they have struggled in the past, but are in a different place today. But taking that to another place, how does parents even sharing their struggles with other parents inspire kids? Is it important that when we're challenged or struggling, that we immediately link a conversation about how we might be maybe bummed out or feeling kind of in isolation when we're talking with our kids, that we link that immediately to a resolution? Or is there a benefit to sometimes sharing that we're just struggling and we don't really know what we're going to do next? Or should we always have some kind of resolution that we say, I'm struggling, or this thing is making me kind of question, and I don't know what I'm going to do? What do you think there, Dr. Kathy?
I think it's totally okay to not always have a solution. Oh my goodness, parenting is complex, especially the guinea pig child, right? You're oldest and you're trying to figure things out about schooling and summer activities and, how to handle the conversation about the next dark thing. It's just, no, it's challenging and it's okay to not know. And I think it's super important for your kids to see that you reach out. They're so important to you. Bethany, you're so important to me that I need to go out tonight and talk to my friend Lisa because she has a daughter your age and we're trying to figure you out, Now be careful so it's not a gossip mill. Don't talk about the struggle you're having with your kids unless maybe the kids have made that appropriate, depending upon their age. You've actually asked for permission to share, or maybe you just share in a general sense that my kids are driving me nuts. I wanted kids my whole life and now I've got these kids and I don't know what to do. Like, you've got to have sympathy and support and a pat on the back and someone to pray with you. Absolutely. It's so important.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Dr. Kathy. It is important to step into that. I think it's helpful to hear even you say it, and then even to hear myself say it sometimes. We just might need to just say that to people that we're talking to. And I think kind of in these communities that we might be, we can naturally feel really challenged or isolated. Do you think that's really a reality for many parents? And then if it is, like, how do we step into these things and break that cycle of loneliness? Do you have any encouragement for a mom or dad that might be really facing this reality, that they feel lonely, but they don't know if their feeling is actually reality or if it's just the feeling? What do you think there?
Yeah. I think the expectation for perfection and easy parenting makes sharing hard. So I would first say, lift the expectation that you're going to raise perfect kids and that you're going to do it easily. These are challenging days, good heavens. There's just so many reasons for it to be legitimately a challenge, and there's no shame or blame in admitting that. So I think let's lift that perfection expectation so that we feel safe and comfortable saying, I'm struggling with my attitude toward my oldest, or I'm really concerned about decisions my daughter's making, and I haven't figured out exactly how to get her to agree. So I think that would be one thing I would say is raise the expectation, change the expectation from perfection to, better than before, or becoming who you can be, and that the struggle is real and we're going to walk in the valley together. And another thing I'm going to say, and not everybody may like this and not everybody will find this relevant, but I wonder, Wayne, if some of the loneliness, especially for moms, is that they've expected their children to be their best friends. I have had so many people say to me in person, or I'll watch the social media scrolls, here's my 14-year-old daughter, she's my best friend. And, we teach here at the ministry that you're parents, you're not best friends. And my fear is that if you become a best friend, you're afraid to say certain things to your kids, the yes and the no, for fear that they'll no longer like you and therefore they won't be your friend. God didn't give you children so that they would be your friends. We need to get out of the house and network with people who are in our age demographic, if you will, to find friends there. So I hope that comes across right. Raise your kids so they love you and want to be with you and even like you. But the friendship, the give and take of a healthy friendship, that comes later in life.
As Dr. Kathy was talking today, I was reminded of a passage. It comes out of 1 Samuel chapter 1, and I'm going to begin reading at verse 12. As she, Hannah, kept on praying to the Lord, Eli observed her mouth. Hannah was praying in her heart, and her lips were moving, but her voice was not heard. Eli thought that she was drunk and said to her, How long are you going to stay drunk? Put away your wine. Not so, my lord, Hannah replied. I am a woman who is deeply troubled. I have not been drinking wine or beer. I've been pouring out my soul to the Lord. Do not take your servant for a wicked woman. I have been praying here out of my great anguish and grief. Eli answered, Go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant you what you have asked of him. For some reason, this passage out of 1 Samuel just grips at my heart. The reality that Hannah, in many ways, if you know the whole story, feels alone, feels isolated. But the Lord ministers to her and calls her, and she responds by turning her heart to the Lord and spending time just seeking Him and praying to Him and going to the temple, to the point with such reckless abandon that Eli, the priest, thinks that she is drunk because of her commitment to just pouring her heart out before the Lord. It's an interesting picture that I wonder if we displayed for our kids to show them that when we're in deep anguish or when we're feeling alone, that we pull our Bible out, that we really seek the Lord. And what does that look like to seek the Lord with all your heart? Does it look like getting on your knees to pray at the couch? Not out of show, but just out of conviction. Does it look like going to church even when you don't feel like you are getting anything out of it? Does it look like spending time singing or playing praise songs in your house even when your heart isn't singing, but you just know that that's where you want to be? I think doing things like that, letting our kids know that in the hardest times, we have resiliency to really seek the Lord and to turn our face to Him. I think doing that can be a bright light that shines and cuts through some of the darkest times for our kids and gives them muscles to shine and cut through the dark times that they'll face too. I want to thank you for listening to the Celebrate Kids podcast in this daily segment, Facing the Dark. Again, this episode is brought to you by Summit Ministries. Summit has been very kind to support Dr. Kathy and the things that we do here at Celebrate Kids. They do a fantastic 2-week camp throughout the course of the summer for high school and college age kids to help them wrestle through some of the deepest questions they might have. The camp's held in Manitou Springs, Colorado and Lookout Mountain, Georgia, and I really encourage you to check it out. To do that, go to summitministries.org/celebrate kids. Again, that's summitministries.org/celebrate kids. Thanks again for listening to the Celebrate Kids podcast, this daily segment, Facing the Dark. On behalf of Dr. Kathy Cook, my name is Wayne Stender, and I'm thankful you're listening, and we're looking forward to seeing you here again tomorrow.